there's certain people that are trying to figure out who is responsible for this. So this discussion should not be you guys slinging mud at each other. Okay, this is truly.
Let's just platform Jew hate and then deny Jew hate. Let's platform Jew hate and then deny we create Jew hate content.
For people to they may have more evidence of something bigger than we understand. I think
Ooh, something huge.
There to be a justification for the state of Israel by not being and feeding into the increased anti-Semitism, but at the same time, maybe there's something there. We're dismissing because of our conditioning to.
This is Maze Love. She's an anti-Semite Jew hate platformer on X.
So I just want to.
She says she worked for Goldman Sachs.
The conversation, right, and allow people to.
Looks like she got big tits.
And not to be angry or call them ignorant. Like we're all on the same.
50-year-old sugar pie. She's a sugar hole.
Hold on, Jay. Trigger happy. Hold on, Maze Love. I know.
Can we bring up Olive? I don't know who talked to him.
Yeah, let's be. It wasn't about ignorant, Maze. It was. He called him apologetic.
Okay, we're trying.
Calling him apologetic isn't exactly.
1 second,
nice. Right.
Can we get?
Yummy.
Can we get 30 votes just to make sure that we have both sides on the panel?
Yes.
So they
All right. So
I was my thoughts for you.
Can I respond?
Yeah.
I like to. Okay, thank you. First of all, thanks
Hold
for
on a second. Of course. Okay, I'm just trying to figure out who we can move down because I think we have all the hands up. So yes, Olive, I'm going to bring you up in just a second. Please be patient. I will bring you right back up as soon as we drop the next person. But go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Dr. Farrow.
Yes.
I can unite all of them, and even through Stiller, he's about to spew a lot of true hate, and I acknowledge it. I'm gonna give my space to whoever you want to bring up and let me speak at the finish. I will unite all these people. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well, now definitely need to respond.
So now we got
this high praise. Okay, so first of all, I don't hate anybody. I didn't want to have to go down that path. I have to even mention that, but since it got pointed out, it's a recorded space. I don't hate anybody. I wish peace upon the world, peace between all the faiths, and even those that are atheists, because again, I believe everyone deserves to be treated equally with justice, and that they should not be harmed just for their beliefs, much less the actions of others. So I just want to make that part clear. Now, with respect to this whole notion of Zionism, I mean, I've looked at so many different stats, heard so many people from both sides, both Jews and non-Jews, say they actually get offended when you just call them Zionists. Like, no, I'm Jewish first. They always identify as Jewish first. In fact, the Jews themselves, even the Russian ones, will say, I'm not Russian, I am Jewish first. That's just who these people are. That's what their identity is. So I believe you have to show them that respect. It's in fact anti-Semitic just to label them as Zionist, given that the majority of them are Zionist anyway, between 90 and 95%. So that's the grand majority. That doesn't mean that I'll just overlook the works of, say, Professor Ilan Pape or Professor Norman Finkelstein. I've read their works. I'm familiar with all their works. I think the point that needs to be made here is that the conflict does extend beyond just Palestine. It's the same entity, terror entity, Israel, that's also bombing all of its neighbors from both Iraq, Syria, Iran recently, of course. And you've got Egypt. They've also taken over the Rafah crossing the Philadelphia against the Camp David Accords. So it's an expansionist terrorist entity that, again, the conflict extends beyond just Palestine. Well, now with respect to history, various deals have been made with the Soviets and the Soviet Jews who are also committing various massacres against white Orthodox Christians. These same Soviet Jews are now committing these massacres against Palestinians. So there are parallels here and a consistent pattern of these genocidal people in different parts of the world. So I just mentioned USSR, and now I've mentioned Palestine, and I've also mentioned different parts of the Middle East where they're also committing massacres. So I'm just trying to say it extends beyond just Palestine. Now, with respect to Orthodox Christians, they've consistently committed massacres against them too. As already mentioned, what's happened in Azerbaijan. This will also be mentioned that they were also the lead of the Young Turks that also committed the genocide of both the Armenians, of course, the Greeks and Assyrians as well, over 1.5 million. And Israel's probably the one remaining country left that does not acknowledge the Armenian genocide. I wonder why, because it would implicate them and they would probably have to owe reparations, which of course they don't want to pay because they don't like paying for anything. Anyway, it was also Soviet Jews, socialist Marxist Jews. They were the ones who committed the massacres, the majority of which were against, again, white Orthodox Christians and also Muslims from Russia. Sorry, I'll finish. I won't be too long. Between 1917 and 91, about 100 million. That doesn't get acknowledged in many history books, again, by design. And also, it was also between 45 and 48, where they killed over 11 million Germans, that's a conservative figure, and raped over 2 million of their women. Again, white Christians. So there just seems to be a consistent pattern of these, not all Jews, I'm not saying they're all Jews, but many of whom appear to be Jews, whether they're socialist Jews, Marxist Jews, communist Jews, Zionist Jews, I don't really care. Genocidal Jews that kill Christians and kill Muslims systematically. It's been 100+ years now, and they think they're entitled to do it. They'll use the Holocaust as a reason, or they'll just say it's because of the old pogroms from 150, 200, 300 years ago. And the reason why they need this homeland isn't because they have any real biblical lineage, given that most of them say it's just a secular land anyway, and it's a fake democracy that's actually an apartheid. It's because, one, they think they're entitled to it, and two, they use it as a home base to shield themselves from prosecution when they commit various crimes around the world. And many of these people aren't even Zionists to begin with. They just take advantage of the right of return. And
Can I ask you in specific something to clarify about you as an individual speaking? Are you against me? I'll get like the short answer from you, then I'll move the conversation, because I think Avi and Icy, they have been waiting for a while, and then we can go to the other opposing view as well. So, Truth, because I see other people that talk, when it comes to your position, maybe they understand it, maybe they don't. Are you anti-Jewish or anti-Jewish supremacy?
I'm anti-Jewish supremacy. I'm actually pro-Jewish. I wish all Jews would practice their religion faithfully, abide by the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet a neighbor's property, thou shalt believe in God. Unfortunately, many of them do not, nor do they abide by the 613 mitzvahs that they're required to do, nor do they abide by the 3 oaths that they are committed to, one of which is to never return to the land of Palestine, which belongs to the Palestinians, 2, to assimilate faithfully and abide by all the laws of the land they're required to do.
Just to continue, I get it, but just to continue on the same point. So you said that you're not anti-Jews, you're just anti-Jewish supremacy. Why are you using, why then, Jewish supremacy is Zionism. Why are you choosing to use the word Jews instead of Zionism or Zionists?
Because unfortunately the majority of these Jews happen to be Zionists, and they prefer to be called Jews. This is what they told me, so I'm just showing respect to them by calling them Jews.
Is there something that they want to, and this is the last question, how, if this is something that they want to push out as an agenda to serve them?
But is there an official poll? But then who am I to judge them? I'm but a mere Gentile. What do I know? I'm just following the Jews' orders.
No, but Truth, you said that this is what they prefer. Is there an official poll around the world by scientists who did and looked and polled all these Jews around the world, and they say
so they'd be statisticians, by the way, not scientists. But go on.
In a scientist way, not.
But you're
saying I asked them, and they told me
which is more correlated with math.
Okay, this is hard.
You get the question.
Hey, guys, 1 second.
Well, I've already told. I've got polls.
He was being facetious. He was hot God.
That was not me.
Listen, he was being facetious. It was me. It was I. Look, guys, this is it's annoying now, because it's like, these little kind of ad hominems and poking each other, and it's like we're not even scraping beyond the surface, right? What I would like to do is just kind of lift up some layers and see, where is this coming from? Why? How do we separate the good Jews from the ones that are very pro-Israel, pro-Zionist? Because what I find is that we get shamed easily for asking questions and for being anti-Israel, or for not wanting genocide. We get shamed, and I feel like that kind of do we create like some sort of a way to be able to say that for those that do not support this, we just don't. I guess there's a lot. I'm just objectively speaking about this, but that also personally, I find myself fighting resentment in my heart every day, and I do it consciously. There's a lot of people that move around that are not conscious of this. They're just observing it, they're seeing it, and they're like, this is horrific, and that is probably going to raise their anti-Semitic, fuck that word, okay? They're probably questioning, like, why is the Jewish state allowed to exist? And we're trying to separate Judaism and Jewish from a Jewish state, which is very difficult for people, right? Like, how do you do that? How do you say this is not related, that this is political? Because it's based, it's weaved in.
So prayers where they pray to go back to the land of Zion 3 times a day.
Yeah, wait. Can we go to?
Well, what I want is to find a way to not hate, or to not increase the hate for all Jewish people, because they're the ones that are not in any way related to this, I guess, are you know, I'm not trying to group them, but how come they're not separating themselves by speaking out against
They are.
I don't know.
They're Orthodox
They are?
Jews. Yes, the Orthodox Jews. They do. They're sponsored by their own community.
Wait.
They don't really work.
Yeah, wait.
Yeah, look, I'll be quick because I've got 2% on my battery, so I'll be very, very quick. The main reason I came up was when Suppress, she asked that question. I can't remember who you asked that question. But you asked that question. What was the question? The question was, the Messiah. And according to the Judaism, what happens is when the Messiah comes, only then will the Jews have a land. And so basically, if you listen to a lot of the ultra-Orthodox, what I consider conservative Orthodox, actual Jews, anything that isn't Orthodox, to me, isn't a Jew. I mean, call it secular Jews. They're not Jews, atheists or whatever. They're not Jews. Anyways, Orthodox Jews themselves, if you listen to interviews, read statements of Orthodox Jews living inside of Israel, living inside of Jerusalem today, and you ask them, what is your opinion on anti-Zionism? And they'll both say to you, according to the Judaism, until the Messiah comes, there is no state. You ask them the question, do they want the Messiah comes? I'm not saying what happens after is correct. I'm not saying what they say in the Torah to think about crimes and stuff's correct. But what I am saying is, if you do practice the faith, if you are a religious Jew, you're not supposed to obviously have a state until the Messiah comes. It doesn't make sense. The other thing I wanted to say was the question about there was another question. Let's just talk about patterns for a second, right? Truth Teller spoke about patterns about Jews being here, Jews being there. Last time I checked, if you look at patterns, let's talk about Britain imperialism. Let's talk about American imperialism. And let's talk about where Jews were involved. And we can talk about what happened in Cambodia, in Indochina, in China. We can talk about what's happening in Latin America, even Ukraine. A lot of that doesn't necessarily tie back to Israel per se. A lot of these policies, a lot of the degradation, a lot of the degeneracy, a lot of the destruction, a lot of the exploitation is not necessarily happening under the name of a Jew.
Talk about Jewish bankers. We're profiting from these wars.
We can talk about bankers. We can go into bankers, the Morgans, and all the other, embarrassing.
Why not Rothschild? Their lies are being
We can talk about Rothschild. We can. I just wanted to make those 2 points about Judaism, specifically about how they actually under the faith. If you actually practice the faith, there are a lot of Jews inside of Jerusalem themselves that are denouncing what is happening inside of Israel. And of course, when we talk about patterns, I just want to address the ones about Britain. I want to address the ones about American imperialism, exceptionalism, and how much of an impact and how much of a negative impact that's had on the world. It's not just the Jews.
Sure, let's talk about it. Let's talk about who's in charge of the Federal Reserve Bank and also the Bank of England as well. The Rothschild Bank.
Wait. 1 second. I'll let you go ahead as well. But Ice has been waiting as well, and I want to continue the conversation as back and forth with everyone. And I don't know, Maze, how you want to open.
But he mistakes American imperialism with Jewish supremacy.
I'll let you address it and do everything you want. But I find it irritating when people stay on a panel for 1 hour without
Sorry, just a quick thing. I did say I was going to point this out. I did put in the nest, and I'm just putting it quickly because it's very important for Americans. There is this anti-Semitism awareness act that's been introduced in Israel. I'll put it in the next. I encourage everyone to read. It's been
America, not Israel.
Just to give yourself some America. I'm just putting it up there for her.
Great article, by the way.
Thank you, Avi. I see. Go ahead.
I'll let Truth finish and then I'll come back after Truth. If that's okay.
Thank you, I appreciate it. It's funny he mentions Cambodia, or if he wants to mention Vietnam, Laos, etc. And who was the Secretary of State then? Yeah, that's right, Henry Kissinger. I believe he was Jewish. I believe he was actually sponsoring all those wars. And this is the guy they gave a Nobel Prize to. Not your best example. Try harder. Now, with respect to American
Henry Kissinger made from his pocket,
which really didn't start. Okay, let's talk about who paid for it. I'm glad you brought that up.
No, I'm asking you. Is Henry Kissinger? Man, it's not.
Let's talk about 1930.
The Jewish.
When it was American Jews primarily, and also British Jews that established the
how many times
what they
say
call it
Oh, hey, what up, Concrete?
What's going on, bro? What is up with you, man? Explain yourself.
Explain yourself.
I am a black man who has discussions about politics, race, religion, anything you want to talk about, and I don't bullshit people. I'm not a diplomat when I don't need to be diplomatic. Go ahead, explain yourself.
So wait, you're black?
Explain yourself.
Those who say do not know, and those who know do not say. I mean, obviously you don't get it.
No, I don't get it, which is why I'm asking the question. Obvious.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you're voting Trump and you're going to the gym, right?
Not voting Trump.
Ooh.
Maybe I'll go to the gym, maybe I'll go fishing, I'm not sure.
So you're gonna vote for a communist whore?
Most likely, yeah.
Wow.
Explain yourself now.
I told you. I just explained myself. I told you those who say do not know, and those who know do not say. That's my explanation. You don't like it.
That's a brain dead idiom. But go ahead. Why are you afraid to be normal, bro?
Bro, this is me.
You can only be normal for 10 minutes at a time.
Bro, this is me.
You found a shtick and you got addicted to it. It's almost like you can't break character.
No, I'm not in character.
It's like you can't break character because it's so fucking addictive.
It's not addictive. Your problem is a you problem. It's not a me problem.
Have you ever been a writer? Have you ever been a writer?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you ever got lost in the world that you were writing about and you're just so excited to get to it and just created and created and created? like a runner's fucking high? You ever had that?
Sure.
Okay, this is what this character's doing to you, so you understand.
You're projecting now. This is everything you're saying about me is a projection of you.
This is a normal fucking clubhouse retort when you guys have a basic understanding of philosophical or psychological.
I see.
You try to use it as a deflection.
I
right?
see.
Because you're not really willing to deal with it. And that's sad. That's sad that you're
grown ass man. It's fucking sad. Motherfucker. This motherfucker coming in my room on my motherfucking internet, on my nickel and dime, and he fucking wasting my time. Well, if the world famous Concrete, the man who has spent months, maybe years, running his mouth on this app, word by word, stringing it all along, hasn't progressed at all, I guess you might say he wastes his time. But so do I. I'm in the media business. I'm creating content.
Alright, I guess that makes sense. But again, creating content in this manner, just how you're here alone. How are you creating content?
How am I here alone? I'm here with two people.
Why aren't you more involved?
And the room's on record.
Why aren't you more involved such that you're, curating environments for content?
Alright, I'm gonna curate an environment right now. I hope you enjoy it. This is called Alan Watts on Being God. You should learn how to just shut up. Stop running your mouth. It's called meditation. Meditation.
Mark Watts, your host, and today's talk is on Being God, which was recorded in 1971 in New York City at a conference on Western therapy and Eastern religions. Like last week's talk, Zen Bones, it's a big hall presentation. given to hundreds of people who attended the conference. And in it, my father explores both Western therapy and Western religions in relationship to the mystical experiences or altered states that are the basis of Eastern religions. He points out that neither Western therapy nor Western religions are particularly equipped to deal with individuals who've had these experiences. And in the course of the talk, he invites everyone there to participate with him in a clinical experiment in which he positions himself as a patient who's had one of these experiences and believes himself to be God, and invites the audience to ask any questions they like. The results are lively, at times hilarious, and definitely enlightening as he pivots from idea to idea and question to question and delivers a remarkable performance. And now here's Alan Watts in On Being God.
Between Western psychology, psychiatry, and psychotherapy, and the so-called religions of Asia, there is common ground because both are interested in changing states of human consciousness. Whereas institutional Western religion, Christianity, Judaism, and even Islam are relatively less interested in this matter. Western religions are more concerned with behavior, doctrine, and belief than with any transformation of the way in which we are aware of ourselves and of the world. But this matter concerns psychiatry and psychology very much. Only those states of consciousness which are not normal are usually treated in Western psychology as being in some way sick. There are, of course, exceptions to this, and there have increasingly been exceptions. In the work of Jung, and to some extent even of Grodek, of Prinzhorn, of more modern people, Rogers, and Ronald Lang. Changing consciousness is often looked upon as a form of therapy. But in general, different states of consciousness from the normal are regarded as a form of sickness. And therefore, official and institutional psychiatry constitutes itself the guardian of sanity and of socially approved experience of reality. And very often it seems to me that reality appears rather much the way the world is seen on a bleak Monday morning. In this official doctrine, I might even say dogma, of what reality is. Because after all, we know that our science, such as it is of psychology, is founded in the scientific naturalism of the 19th century. And the metaphysical and mythological assumptions of that science still underlie a great deal of psychological thinking, in behaviorism eminently, but also to a large extent in official psychoanalysis. Indeed, one might say that psychoanalysis is based on Newtonian mechanics and in fact could be called psychohydraulics. Not that that analogy is altogether inappropriate, because there are certainly respects in which our psychic life flows and exhibits the dynamics of water. But of course we want to know what kind of water. And for the scientific naturalism of the 19th century, the basic energies of nature were considered to be very much inferior to human consciousness in quality. Ernst Haeckel a biologist of that time would think of the energy of the universe as blind energy. And correspondingly, it seems to me that Freud thought of the libido as essentially blind, unconscious energy, embodying only a kind of formless, unstructured, and insatiable lust. This is a generalization. Some modification in that thinking is, of course, possible. But the tendency is to regard all that which lies below the surface of human consciousness as being less evolved, because you must remember that this was also the time of Darwin's theories of evolution, of seeing the human mind as a fortuitous development from much more primitive forms of life, coming forth by purely mechanical processes, by natural selection and by the survival of the fittest. And therefore, man was in general seen as a fluke of nature, an embodiment of reason, emotion, and values, for which the more basic processes of nature had no sympathy and about which they did not care. If, therefore, the human race is to flourish, we must take charge of evolution. It can no longer be left to spontaneous process, but must be directed by human ingenuity, despite the fact that although our brains are capable of dealing with a colossal number of variables at once, our conscious attention is not. Most people cannot consider more than 3 variables at the same time without using a pencil. And this shows that in many ways the scanning process of man's conscious attention is very inadequate for dealing with the infinitely many variables, the multidimensional processes of the natural universe. However, a serious attempt has been made, and scientific naturalism issued in a fantastic fight with nature. In this whole notion of the conquest and subordination of nature, which has, as a matter of fact, very ancient, non-scientific and biblical origins, with the idea of man as the head and chief and ruler of nature in the image of God. And the time has now dawned upon us all when our attempts to beat nature into submission are having alarming results, because we see that it's very dangerous to mess around with processes that we don't understand, that have enormous numbers of variables, and we begin to wonder whether we hadn't better let well enough alone. At the same time, although I said that Western psychology had more in common, or more common interest with Oriental religion than it does with Western religion, there is a sense in which psychiatry and psychotherapy are becoming the religion of the West. Psychoanalysis has much in common with the forms and procedures of institutional religion. There is, for example, apostolic succession, the passing down of mana, of qualified power to practice therapy, from the father founder, Sigmund Freud, through his immediate apostles, to an enormous company of archbishops and bishops, among whom there are, of course, as there were with Christianity, heresiarchs, such as Jung and Grodek and Rank and Reich. And the heresiarchs are duly excommunicated and anathematized. There are rituals, as there are also rituals with religion. There is the sacrament of the couch. There is the spiritual discipline of free association. There is the mystic knowledge of the interpretation of dreams. And there are also the two great symbolic fetishes, the long one and the round one. Now, it's extraordinarily easy to make fun of all this. And we must not forget that we owe a tremendous debt to Freud, if for nothing else than pointing out that much of ourselves of which we are aware in terms of the conscious ego is not really ourselves. It is something superficial. However we define its nature, it is superficial. And the realities of human life are not under the gaze of its scanning process, at least not in the ordinary way. And that was a tremendous revelation. There's no question about that. But one sees troublesome signs when the doctrines and processes of psychiatry, psychoanalysis, and so forth become officialized. And I think Thomas Sass, in his books, The Myth of Mental Illness and The Manufacture of Madness, is pointing out something extremely important to us, which is that, in effect, the psychological official of today is the priest, and that he is beginning to exercise the same sort of controls over human life as were exercised by the church in the Middle Ages. So that a professor of psychiatry at Columbia or Harvard or Yale medical schools has today the same sort of intellectual respectability and authority as the professor of theology at the University of Toledo or Padua would have had in the year 1400. Now you must realize that the theologians of those days not simply believed in their cosmology and the theology, they almost knew it was true in the same way that our scientists know certain things to be true. Despite the fact that they change their opinions very often, while they hold them, they have in effect the force of dogma, as witness the anathematization of Velikovsky for his uncomfortable ideas. And therefore, there are heresies existing today which are persecuted in the same way as heresies were persecuted by the Holy Inquisition. And they are persecuted out of kindness, in exactly the same way that the Holy Inquisition persecuted heresy out of kindness and deep concern for human beings. That is unimaginable to us, but it was so. For after all, if you seriously believe that someone who did not hold the Catholic faith and who voluntarily rejected it,
because I said, it's a coincidence, now it doesn't exist, boring, that's old, old news. I was always lying because I thought, but that was not because I didn't believe them or others.
Would be tortured physically and spiritually forever and ever and ever in hell. You would resort to almost any means to preserve a fellow human being from such a fate, especially if the complaint or disease of heresy from which he suffered was infectious. You would first of all